ready.
Are these just recorded and not streamed?
Alright, we're good. These are just recorded, not streamed.
Oh, really? They're not oh, they stream
No,
later,
they're
don't
just
they?
recorded.
We
then.
post later to YouTube.
We good?
Yep, we're good, John, thank you.
Good evening, I'm gonna call to order the planning commission, a meeting of Tuesday, January the 20, oh, no, not January the 23rd. Yes, it is January.
January
23rd.
23rd. Yes.
Yes, it is, that's right.
I had to look at my calendar again.
Good evening, everyone.
Is it 23rd already?
Chairman Reich,
Is Ed, yes,
may I move to accept the agenda with a
yes, I was
minor
just gonna
amendment?
answer that. What would you like to amend, sir?
I would like to add an old business item, in before we talk about the draft sidewalk ordinance, and that's enforcement of the current sidewalk ordinance or the lack thereof. And so I took a brief drive around the downtown area, and was flabbergasted by the amount of unkempt sidewalks. And so I think it's important for us to have a separate item so it's, at least has some face value when the board approves the minutes. And it calls into question, why do we do this work if the township doesn't enforce these ordinances?
And what was the ordinance not being enforced?
Sidewalk maintenance, clearance of snow and ice.
I guess,
you
not
want-
as an agenda item, but just related to that. Is anything to be done to improve the condition of the housing in downtown? I mean, some of those buildings down there have windows that are sheets hung up there, I mean,
Maybe we could talk about that during,
let's-
commissioner comments.
Yeah, that's, okay. Is there any other changes you'd like to add?
So just for us, for the minutes, so, B will become C under old business, and the new B will be enforcement of sidewalks.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second?
second,
Anybody opposed? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Anybody got a conflict of interest, anything we're gonna talk about on the agenda? No? There's no public. Minutes, Miles, January 9th.
yep.
Is there, you have one comment?
I have one comment on, Board of Trustees comments. Nothing wrong with her comment, except that on A3, it says discussion on the settlement at the state level. What settlement are we talking about? People don't know what that settlement is, we gotta describe or define that settlement.
I believe it was the opioid settlement.
Yes, it was the opioid
Yeah, it
settlement.
was the opioid.
Yeah, add
settlement.
that in so
We
people
will
know.
make that change.
wanna clarify that,
Opioid
Miles?
settlement
I have a-
money.
Another, so under trustee Phillips' comments, there is a reference to polysilicone, and it's written as if it's a name.
Yes.
That should just be lowercase POLY, no space, lowercase s silicone. And that's short for polycrystalline silicone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got another item. So I'm listed as having made public comment, and I'm not sure that I made public comment during public comment.
You might have talked during the period of public comment, or responded, I think you did respond to what
Respond back
somebody
to him,
said.
Did we have public, I mean,
It was just trustee Phillips was the.
We had-
did he make public comments?
Yeah.
We had
Yes.
some dialogue
Responded
with
to what you
Mr. Phillips when he was here.
When he shared the solar
Yeah.
panel concerns, that was.
No,
during
that was
public comment.
represented earlier.
And the general public comment.
Yeah, so this is the second
Oh,
public
this is the
comment.
second public.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
And I'm,
We had that conversation, but I don't know that it was a public comment.
I did,
Let's put it that
I
way.
was trying to make sense of,
we
what
saw-
I said in terms of signage and wayfinding, to increase public participation.
I remember you talking about, I'm just gonna say that we probably need to move that down to planning
Planning
commissioner.
commission comments.
Yes, we should, that was,
Okay, sorry about that.
yeah, that's just in the wrong place.
Yep,
Can we just strike it? Cause I don't think it adds anything.
I'm fine with that too, whatever.
Whatever you made the comment, whatever you're
I make a
comfortable
lot of
with.
comments.
The other comment we talked about, that.
I think it's appropriate that it was brought up, because it was talked about several years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, as part of that, we also discussed the need for the signing, not to just increase public participation, just to let people know where Bath is. We need a sign out
Yeah.
on Marsh Road, we need signs all over the place.
So I think the intent of the comment was not the connecting of signage and wayfinding to public participation, but it was on updating the current set of signs because they are outdated and faded. So if we
That
just
was the
make
intention, I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, great, we'll move that down
Yeah.
to C and we'll make those changes.
and we need more signs.
I also had a question on planning commissioner comments. I don't remember saying we need an ordinance for the failed development area, so if that's what I said, that was probably not my intentions, just to
I
be
think
clear
you
on that.
asked if we should have something. And I think in the discussion, it just fell through.
Yeah, I mean, there's it's a synopsis, so if you pose it like that and somebody, you were saying maybe we should have this and somebody said, oh, well, there could be a need, I mean, that's just us trying to. But would you like us to say there could be a need for it, or need, could be something to look at?
Maybe a need.
It's all
Which one was
right.
that under?
What are you
It's under
comfortable
planning
with?
commissioner comments, or do you want us to strike it?
Oh,
I don't recall saying we need need for an ordinance, so if we could word it that
We can,
for failed developments to be accountable or something, but it really, at the end of the day, don't really matter.
you know. We can just say developments need to be held accountable in failed development areas. We'll change it from need to something lighter.
Is there anything else?
I move to accept the minutes as amended.
Second?
There's, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on. Communications, anything, Miles, that you wanna?
Yeah, there are a
Who seconded
couple.
that? Who seconded that motion? Jason?
Jason,
Yeah, so, we have a communication from Woodhull, so they're gonna engage in some master planning here, and they're just giving us the classic heads up.
yep,
So if that's something that anybody is interested in participating in, just watch out for communications from them and just be engaged in their process. The supervisor, Fiona Bliss, wanted me to share with the planning commission the latest recreation plan, which even before the meeting, I got some feedback on to share back with, the staff that's helping put this plan together on a couple of just small edits. But yeah, it's quite lengthy, it's very involved, and it's in the packet, so give it a look.
Nice.
Is that the non-motorized plan?
This is the recreation plan.
Oh, the 5-year plan, Parks and Rec plan.
I think overall, I mean, on a high level, I just personally think they did a really good job, and I think nothing's ever perfect, but I think it's far above what we've done in the past in this area, so. I think it shows that we brought in some outside help at what I felt was a pretty good deal for the township, cause I know that we coupled Williams and Works doing this plan and the non-motorized together and kinda got that bulk pricing. I think, I wanna say between the two plans, it was like $15,000 or something, so.
The non-motorized plan only added 13.8, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I think this one was 13,000, the non-motorized one was like 3,000 or 5,000 or something.
Wow, they must
Because
have
they're
an even better
already
deal.
doing a lot of the work that is entailed in this plan for the non-motorized, so. Yeah, so it's a good deal, it's a good plan, and yeah, I mean, check it out, it'll be something that I know that Ben, with DPW and Parks has already been looking at ways to implement the plan, so. Hopefully it'll actually move some stuff forward in the township, be nice to see. That's all I got for communications.
thank you, Miles. Old business, let's move on to old business, the planning division workload, I think there's a chart in your packet.
Yeah. So at the last meeting, you guys got what last year's workload was, and then we kinda checked off, and so for this one, ignore these timelines, act like they're not there. We'll redo all these timelines to see what is currently going on and what we currently project where we could do stuff. But, we took out all the stuff that was highlighted green in the last packet, cause those items were tackled and done now. So basically what we got is the items in yellow are currently in the works, the items in red are in the queue. And we were looking for some feedback for, and I already did add some of the items we got feedback for. Like amending the landscaping plan, to look at some of that tree lawn stuff we were talking about and get more teeth in the language of that. One item that we were talking about today that staff wanted to bring forward to this conversation, if that's okay, that we might wanna look at this year, is something we've looked at in the past, actually when, Jason, when you were on the, board, we brought a version of this forward. But some new things have come to light, and it's something that our zoning administrator Bert Gale and, our code enforcement officer Kevin Douglas feel might be needed here, and that's, I don't know if you guys saw the news report a while ago about the apartments over there on Chandler, and some of the conditions within those apartments and how tenants were
yes.
feeling about it. So the township has made a really hard push to do enforcement within those apartments. I know we're gonna talk about the township and doing enforcement, but enforcement's not a light lift for Bath Township or any municipality of our size, because there's only so many hours in the day, there's only, I'm not trying to make excuses, it's the reality of the situation. Our code enforcement officer is also the fire marshal and goes on calls all the time. So, if we're having him do apartment inspections, it means that he's not doing other things, it doesn't mean he's like doing it in addition to whatever. We also have had to bring in the building side of, for a lot of this, so that means we're pulling in AGS employees, because our building department is subcontracted by the township, if people didn't know that. And those employees are then billing the township for those hours that they're spending in those apartments. So we've been doing, apartment by apartment sweeps and going in and making sure all of our codes and everything is being enforced on the building, the fire side, and we've been getting good return on those enforcements. Things are changing over there, but this is all incredibly time consuming and expensive. We right now have no way to recoup that cost, there's not any kind of fee structure that we can build in. When we do this work, we're doing it on the taxpayer's dime, it's the apartment complexes themselves aren't paying for any of these additional inspections. Now, when they pull a mechanical permit to fix the issue we've identified, they'll pay for that mechanical permit and they'll pay for the inspection. But they didn't pay for the initial inspection to identify the issue.
Right.
So what I guess we're proposing is, Kevin is supposed to bring forward an ordinance to the board this year to upgrade the township's fire code that they use. Right now, they work off the 2009 fire code, they wanna update to the 2021 fire code, I believe. A part of that will be some amendments that he can do to health and safety for inspecting larger multifamily properties such as apartments. We'd like to also couple that with an ordinance that, allows us to ticket violations within apartments. I know before, the conversation was like rental housing, like Airbnbs, and that seemed like too broad of a brush and maybe would impact some of our small business owners that own rental properties in the township. Me and Kevin felt like if we could limit the scope to just apartment complexes, there might be more buy-in from the board. But to do all this, that takes my time and our interns' time and staff to do the research and write the language, as you guys know, with the clear cutting ordinance, and it's labor intensive.
Right.
So does that seem like an item this body would support being added to our work plan?
I would think so.
I think so.
Very much so.
Yes.
Okay, alright, we'll add that one, I appreciate that, I guess everyone's had some time to review this, I guess, John, I'll let you take it away for what you think of the plan and what this body wants to do. In terms of keeping items, adding items, is this appropriate for what we got for this year? Are there any items we need to move up on the roster that you see as like, some we should be working on like this month, next month versus something that could wait? I know, like, for example, one of them that is very hot right now and something that we're gearing up to spend a lot of time on is the wind energy and the solar, amending our current wind language to make sure we're in compliance and then creating a residential solar ordinance. I know the MTA is creating some draft language, so hopefully that will be a lighter lift, because organizations like the MTA will just give us draft language, and then we'll just implement what they have. Yeah,
What about our sign discussion from last week and earlier today? A survey of the signs that we currently have and maybe a plan for what it might look like or cost to upgrade it?
township signage plan,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be a good one.
I think that might be important due to the, you know, both corridors being worked on.
Yeah. Yeah, township signage plan, I mean, that's a good one, yeah, we get a plan together.
Probably sooner than later.
That's something we just talked about, last Tuesday at the Friends of Park Lake meeting. We have, for that Park Lake corridor in specific, we have specific signage that we think needs to be brought to the township's attention to be improved.
So would a group meeting between maybe Parks and Recs and them and us? might
Yeah,
be-
I think so, and John, I don't know if Adam has reached out to you, not to slightly go on a different topic, but I know that he said to me that he wanted to reach out at some point to do another group meeting, I know we did a couple of those with the parks plan, but
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be an area where the two bodies might wanna talk together. So maybe you and Adam can talk and let me know what you guys wanna do.
sure, that's fine. Well, I know several years ago, we asked Parks and Rec to get signs made, those cast bronze, I think everybody's familiar with,
Yeah.
for the parks, but nothing happened.
Well, it went to the board and it got funded, right, and then it just
Yeah.
didn't go.
Yeah, it got thumbs up, so, but nothing ever happened about it. So
As I
don't know
recall,
who
that
dropped
was-
the ball or why, but,
Well, wasn't that before Parks and Rec was dissolved?
yes,
I believe it was, because I was
Yes.
on the board at that time.
yes, it
And,
was.
everything got dissolved. So,
Yeah, and I don't know why. but-
Yeah, it was before my time, I don't know why that.
Yes, it was, definitely.
we're all in the dark on that one.
If we're gonna do
So I don't know whether there was money set aside for it, I assume there was.
Yeah, you had mentioned
But
that.
the
Did you
board
see something,
approved it.
Miles, on that?
No, I just know that the board approved it, but we've had this talk in the past, and I
Yeah.
think it even came up at a board meeting, it just
Oh.
didn't get implemented.
So, I wonder to what extent this requires committee effort as opposed to hiring, like getting bids.
Well, I think I agree, yeah, it'd be nice if we could just pull the trigger and say, we need new signs, let's get some bids. But that, again, that's a board action, I think in lieu of the board saying, we want this done and we wanna spend money, let's do it. I think, all I can do from kind of the planning side is, I think a signage plan is nice, because then I can at least say hey, this is what we're finding, this is what it would look like, this is some of the cost, so at least we could bring information forward. And, cause sometimes with the board, you gotta bring information forward and then get an action, it's not, it depends on the board, and I'm not trying to, the board does a lot, they do, it's not an easy job. I'm not trying to say anything about the board, but sometimes worked in municipalities and with municipalities where the board or the city council would take action and then expect feedback and data later, where here it's more information comes to the board and then action is taken. But I don't feel like that's where we're going, stepping on any, I feel like that's probably the hierarchy it should go, we should decide as a community, me working with you guys, bringing forth a sign plan, and then it goes up to the board.
would that include design?
It could include design, I mean, you get into a whole thing there.
Well, at the time we talked about it, the state had a contract with a firm that did those cast bronze signs. You had to
Do you guys
follow
have
the
design?
format of
Yeah.
the sign, but
Design.
the language you had to submit.
Design.
And then, they just cast them for you. And it wasn't that expensive, I think, what,
I get hesitant to get into design.
it was under $1,000 a sign, I know.
Do you
Yeah,
rhyme?
but then that was a long time ago too, you know.
If we do,
Pricing.
if we do a sign plan, I really wouldn't like to
we're out
get
of
into
time.
design, I more so would like to get into the content we'd like to see, where we'd like to see it, sizing, stuff like that. I would want a professional sign, engineer or whatever their title is, graphic arts, someone with a graphics arts background to design a good sign.
Can I add something about that?
Sure.
These projects, as a whole, like the sign project, that's kind of ambiguous, but, I see that, that's, and it's just an observational thing, over the recent past, like I say, in the past 5 years. Every time the board approves a project, such as the signage, I think at that point in time, there should be the board should designate a project manager for that specific duty. That's, in my opinion, that's why the CIP the CIP for the Park Lake Trail is the only approved CIP, and yet nothing has happened ever. If there was a project manager, a designated individual that was responsible for getting bids, like a real project manager, you put out RFQs, things of that nature, and then that person can report back on a repetitive basis to the board in regards to progress or lack thereof.
Isn't that the superintendent's role?
The superintendent is overwhelmed, and that, in my opinion, is something that she shouldn't even be burdened with whatsoever. She should delegate that to someone, because that's beneath her, in my opinion.
I'll make a comment here. I think once you've decided you wanna do this, you've got money allocated for it, it needs to be in somebody's budget. And I think since then
It's in the
Oh.
township's budget.
it needs to be in a department budget, not the township budget.
I agree,
It
Rick.
needs to be assigned to a department. In this case, since we've got a director of public works and parks, that's where it should go.
Okay.
That's
It
right.
should go in his budget.
Yeah.
He's got a line item in there, signs, and there it is. He's got the money to do it. It's up to him to get it done. But he does it personally or not is not the issue. The issue is in his budget.
Right.
He's gotta make sure it gets done.
Yeah,
Exactly. Whether he delegates it or if he does it
Right.
himself.
Exactly.
Right, I agree, yep.
And so
But-
that's a kind of a judicial kind of change that I think should be made, that's not
Yeah,
being
but
done.
I think that's something that the board should be addressing. I don't think that's a planning commission issue.
Well, no, I totally agree, but we are tasked with quote unquote planning.
Well,
And-
that is correct,
And we are just designated as advisors,
correct,
oracles, if you will.
yeah.
And, that's something I think we have an obligation to tell them, that board, if they wanna improve, then I think they need to instigate something of this nature.
I don't disagree with you.
I think to be fair to the board, they've had quite a few distractions over the past few
Oh,
years.
I'm not arguing about that.
And so I would imagine that, with those distractions not gone, mostly, that's, there could be more effective.
Kate's here.
More allocation towards these sorts of day-to-day activities as opposed to putting out fires or going to
Yeah.
court.
Well, I guess what I'm kind of trying to say is that the board needs to take more direct action in regards to follow-ups and delegations of duties that they ordinarily would just say, well, Karen, you take care of that. I could give you a half a dozen things that the board has asked her to do, that she said, okay, and she's just, there's never been a follow-up in 2 years, 3 years. And that's very disconcerting, So-
Well, we do have a lot of different board members than we had in the past several
We do.
years. And we definitely have a different leader of the board
Yep.
than we had for the last 3 years. So I'm sure that we're gonna see some changes, but I don't think they're gonna happen in the next 3 weeks. I think it's gonna evolve over time.
But there is a common denominator here.
Yes, there is, I agree. Yes, and I've had a couple of discussions with Ryan about this.
That.
Another way would be to, instead of having the board approve the money and everything up front, is to put it in somebody's budget right up front, and say, okay, this sign should be assigned to Public Works and Parks. And when he puts together his budget, he should put a money in his line item budget for this amount,
Right,
and the board can either approve it or deny it.
right, and if he doesn't have enough money, then he should carry it over for the next year and do some more work on the same project, or go back to the board, say, I need another
Think-
10,000.
Yeah, things can be driven from the bottom up instead of the top down.
Right,
Yep.
but you have to have people that are willing to delegate for that to happen.
Yep.
John?
So
Oh,
where
I'm
does
sorry.
where does that leave us on our agenda for
Yeah.
putting it on our?
Well, I got the signage plan and I'll do that. I think Kate's probably taking in this feedback about the board.
Yes, she is.
So, does anybody else have any thoughts on any ordinances or I put the sign plan like a special projects, that's why there's 2 spreadsheets. One's ordinance, one's special projects.
Okay.
Can we, I'm curious about the Chandler corridor effort and whether that might be something that we might spend a little bit of time thinking about what all we could do in preparation and planning for that. Cause it's gonna be a huge
Yeah.
project.
Yeah.
I'm also wondering if we might be able to limit the scope of the apartment issue, if there's this, if we designate the corridor, Chandler corridor, like a special district, and then apartments within that district would fall under greater scrutiny.
Yeah, I mean, it's already got, it has its own overlay, so it's the
Oh, is it?
development overlay, so we could,
It
that's
does.
always an option on how to structure that, you could say it applies. But typically, an ordinance like that would be a regulatory ordinance, so it wouldn't be in the zoning ordinance, so you usually wouldn't tie it to a zoning district, cause it's gonna live outside that ordinance.
Right,
And you want it like that because of how you're gonna go to civil trial over this, you want it to be in a regulatory ordinance.
correct.
Plus, we have other, sorry to interrupt. We have other apartments elsewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, like Hawks Ridge, for example.
No, I just don't know if
But-
we've had the same issues with these other apartments.
Yeah, not as
we
much,
have
Hawk
had
Ridge
with-
kind of, I'm trying to think. No, the villages are probably our worst offender apartment wise. There is some smaller apartments on, and some people might not even consider them apartments, by the land use definition, they are apartments on, Clark Road, right across from the high school, that we've had some enforcement actions, if you see that property, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And one on Saginaw.
One of the problems with enforcement in general that I'll just speak about, and I know we'll talk about it more in commissioner comments, I guess, but it's just, it's pendulum that swings in communities from, really hard overbearing authoritarian enforcement to this very light, almost non-existent touch. And I think Bath Township is just finding itself in kind of a weird middle spot of that pendulum in the process of swinging right now.
I don't think we're in the middle, I think we're in the non-enforcement end of it.
To bring up
Well,
another example, that you talk about Chandler corridor, Darrell Kessler has his yard there. And I talked to him about this 5 or 10 years ago about, he's got one white pickup truck and probably other stuff too, that has been there for 10 or 15 years.
There's
Sits
a
there.
couple, 3 junk piles that have been there
Yeah.
forever too.
And we start talking about Chandler corridor, we need to get that cleaned up. And that's strictly an enforcement issue, because apparently we have stuff in the ordinance right now that say junk vehicles, or vehicles cannot be stored if they don't run.
Or building materials.
I have a
Yeah.
lot to say on the staff side of enforcement, but just in the effort to like not be here all night. I agree.
It takes staff to do this, I understand that.
Well, it takes a willingness though too, and it takes a backing of a board that's willing to go to bat when that enforcement
Yeah.
action does happen and you have the public outraged about it.
So we do have an agenda item on enforcement.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Reserve
sure.
some of this conversation for that.
Okay,
Good idea.
but yeah, this is what I got, okay, so in all honesty, going back and thank you, Jason, there's a lot here, we're not gonna get through all this in a year. Of course, this isn't like set in stone, issues are gonna come up throughout the year, just like they did last year. Like the private roads, which wasn't on our work plan originally, but got moved to the top because of
Yep.
a text amendment request.
Yep.
And, worked its way through the process. So we're not set in stone here, this is just something for me to help use with Cade and Lexi and myself when we're sitting there and we do have a dull moment, we can go back to the work plan and say, where are we at, what's in the queue?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I think we should take a serious look at grading or drainage in the wetlands miles, because we're coming up on spring and we've seen a lot of wetland properties that have changed ownership in the last few months.
Yep.
And I don't know what the spring is gonna bring for us, but could be an issue.
Yeah.
Do we wanna go through this list and prioritize it then?
I wouldn't recommend that, cause we're
No,
not
I
gonna
think
be able to stick to it.
Correct, yeah, that's correct,
reality.
what you just stated,
If they're, like, how John's calling out that one's a priority for him, I think that's a priority for us too, it's something we're already in the works, so it's easy for us to keep it in the works. If no one has any qualms about, the solar and wind one, that one will probably do something in the first half of the year.
Well, I think MTA is coming up with some boilerplate.
That's why we'll
language.
probably wait
Yeah.
for them, we're not gonna produce anything
Yeah, I
to see
think-
what that comes out, cause we don't wanna reinvent the wheel if
No.
we're already working on it.
Right, right.
The Chandler corridor, Yeah, that's a big project, hopefully gonna happen in 2025. I know that ad hoc committee that we've been working with will get called together a couple more times. We're basically just, right now, just so everyone knows, we're waiting on how the funding comes to the road commission to determine how this is gonna move forward. We don't wanna be like too far cart in front of the horse with this. We don't wanna do a bunch of sidewalk planning and have all these conversations just to have to reevaluate everything because the funding changed.
Well, Bath's gonna have to bring quite a bit of money to the table for that as well, right?
I'm hoping we won't have to bring too much to the table, because the effort right now is, they originally asked in 2018 for $13 million. They ended up getting, now in 2024, $10 million.
Right.
So inflation's been crazy, and that's 3 mil less than we asked for. But it's 10 mil more than we got, so now the effort from us, the drain commission, SCUMA, and the road commission is to trim the project back to live inside that 10 million. And I know, like, even the ad hoc meeting we had about sidewalks, most of our conversation was trying to still loop in as many people on a network as possible, but with as few feet of sidewalk as possible.
And still stay within our requirements
Yeah,
of the 10 million.
Well, I noticed there's a sign north of, must be Eagle Eye Golf Course on the west side, correct? Says, "Welcome to East Lansing."
Yep.
So I assume East Lansing is gonna put sidewalk up at least as far as, their sign that says, "Welcome to East Lansing."
one, that's why we are gonna have a conversation with East Lansing about sidewalks, and, cause they have a big trail network there, we'd like to link into some of that. We'd like them to come up on the, east side of Chandler that they own.
Along the 425?
Not to, I hate where, it's hard not to get off topic.
Yes, it is.
It is.
We'd
Well,
like them to come up, right now, their sidewalk stops on this side here, we'd like them to come up here and then make linkages for us to meet. If something develops here, we can require that developer to do some networks. So there's a lot of low hanging fruit in this area for sidewalks. If we do our plan to come here and across, we'll have to work with East Lansing to link into their network, they're not just gonna allow it. But the road commission's helping us facilitate those conversations, so
Good.
they're happening. It's a big project and there's a lot of moving parts. It's on the division work plan, because even though you guys, as the planning commission, might not see a ton of effort from this on the staff end, I mean, it's hugely time consuming. Okay, well, John, I
Is
feel,
everybody happy? Let's move on.
yeah, I feel good.
Well, draft sidewalk ordinance and the sidewalk.
You wanna do them right?
Enforcement.
Enforcement, you want the enforcement first?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
Okay, so.
I'm sorry.
Let me, I wanna point out three things. One is, prior issues with sidewalk enforcement that occurred over the summer, and one specific case, observations that I made tonight. And then I would like to talk about some of the, issues and challenges with enforcement and how the township structures their enforcement in terms of personnel. I don't see that as a problem. I think that's, can be a fixable situation, and that's just allocation of resources to that issue. Okay, so, this past summer, well, as you all know, there's been groups within the community who've been working on sidewalks. Safe Routes to School is one group, the Webster Corridor group is another, group. We've gathered a bunch of data, and there's overwhelming feedback from the community that the sidewalks are a problem. And there's a strong desire for, improvements in the sidewalks. Not just improvement of creating new sidewalks, but maintaining, crumbling infrastructure of sidewalks, as well as, maintenance and the, ability to use them, in a safe manner. So, over the summer, one of our community members, a high school baseball player, was on one of those
Segway?
scooter type thing. I did not see a curb cut because the weeds were so tall, and this was on Clark Road between
The
Webster
high
and the high
Webster.
school.
I knew you were talking about.
And so, this was brought up to the administration of the township, a board member, I brought this up to the administration as well as the code enforcement, person. Nothing was done.
When I know I brought it up to code
And,
enforcement as well.
and when we did another sidewalk
And
tour.
I guess I was assured that it was done.
Yeah. So this is a longstanding issue and a serious issue where people are being injured. And, you know, the threats to a aspiring baseball player who broke their arm could have been traumatic, or tragic. So let me fast forward to today, because I knew we were gonna talk about sidewalks. I was like, let me just do a quick little tour. I went down Main Street, and then I went back up Webster, and then I went down, that same, Clark Road, between, Webster and the high school. Here's what I've observed. And this is on the assumption that over the past 24 hours, we have not gotten snow, we've just gotten rain and sleet, right?
Right.
So I was just looking for snow coverage. Approximately 3/4 of the parcels on Main Street were not clear, and only one parcel on Clark Road was clear. Commercial entities were not clear, the schools had not cleared the sidewalks. And so this is a problem. And
agree.
we have students who actively walk these sidewalks to get to school. And so this is incredibly frustrating. I don't know what we can do. This continues to appear to fall on deaf ears, but with deference to what was shared, I mean, this is a larger challenging issue. But it does bring in, it does cause concern that, you know, we put a lot of work into this, you know, thinking on behalf of our community. We put a lot of work and effort to do things right for others. And to have all this work be for naught, I mean, why do we do this? So I don't have a solution, I'm bringing this to the table for discussion, and I also want there to be an agenda item and meeting minutes that go before the board.
Yeah.
If I could share, maybe an analogous situation. Early in my teaching career, the high school that I was in had outgrown its size. And they built a brand new high school, beautiful building, that's where I work now. And at our old high school, it was basically out of control. Think like a 1980s movie set in a high school and all the crazy things that go on there, that the discipline was very, very lax. And over that summer, between moving out of our old high school and moving into our new high school, our administration had some meetings with us and said, we understand how it was, and we also recognize that this is a very unique moment in time. We're moving into this new building, and that almost gives us the opportunity to have kind of a hard reset on the rules and the expectations. Because if we tried this at the old building, there would just be a rebellion. But moving to this new building gives us the opportunity to crack down, to enforce things that we haven't enforced so well, to change the rules a little bit for the sake of the building and protecting it, and it's brand new and it's nice and we want it to stay that way and we want it to be secure. And that's what we did, and it was honestly very, very successful. It was seizing that opportunity at that moment in time was the right thing to do to make a change that would have just gone over horribly had they tried to implement it earlier in the old building. Or if we let things continue in the new building, we wouldn't have been able to probably reel that back in very easily otherwise. And so I think that with this point in time here being nice, shiny, new sidewalks coming in that I imagine will be very noticed and appreciated, that seems like a good time to have some rules in place to roll out to say, yes, we have these new sidewalks and here's how we're gonna treat them going forward. Because we don't want to get to the same level of decay and disrepair where we are now.
Can I say a couple of things real quick, if that's okay?
Absolutely.
On that, and thank you, Kate. So that is kind of exactly the plan. So this has always been the plan for like a year out, is we realize it's an issue. We need a catalyst to change, that's coming in, the safe routes to school. There is a reason that the board has directed us, to look at the sidewalk ordinance now. And you know, credit to Ryan, even when he sat on here, I think that's where he coined the phrase, kind of the clean slate program that we're talking about.
Yeah, it is.
Now, one thing that I wasn't aware of, that I am now aware of, and I'm working with the road commission to mitigate, and it will probably come before the board here shortly, is I was under the impression that all the sidewalks within the downtown area that weren't covered by the safe routes to school, which most of the bad areas in downtown are covered by safe routes to school, there was only, I wanna say maybe $10,000 worth of sidewalk that wasn't covered, that's in very rough condition. I thought action was taken as a part of last year's budget to use the leftover DDA fund, which is geographically fixed, to be a portion of that used to mitigate the rest of the sidewalk area. I was just informed that that didn't happen, so now I'm working with the road commission to get a proposal together to bring back to the board so that can happen and all get done as a part of this 2024, but now I'm playing catch up. Cause it wasn't done before, and I thought that was the whole plan all along.
Yeah, I thought so too.
And people aren't communicating. But specifically to sidewalks, I think, just before we go, I think that's all true, and I think that this will probably work well in the context of sidewalks with the new ordinance in place and the new sidewalks in place. I want people to know that me, particularly, I'm here with you guys writing all the rules, and no one cares more than me and all the planning interns, and I would say Beth, because she helps us with a lot of this stuff in the back too, and all the building inspector, we care a lot about this. But we're not everyone in the township, we're not all the public, and we're not the government too, I mean, I would say this, and the willingness to enforce is a policy decision.
So, thank you for sharing the analogy. I mean, I wonder to what extent, you know, a few new sidewalks would be equivalent to a whole brand new building and the maintenance of a whole brand new building. And it's not, we have issues not just in sidewalk, snow removal and enforcement. We have junk ordinances. Ray had mentioned Kessler property. You know, we have properties throughout the township where there are, you know, junk vehicles in the front yard, not too far from here. And so I think there's a larger cultural issue in terms of enforcement, and the pendulum swings back and forth. I've
100%
had
agree
long
with that.
conversation with the chairperson on the prior code compliance person who was quite zealous in their efforts. But I do think that, you know, we as a planning commission can help guide this in terms of, let's find a balance and stop the swinging back and forth.
I would love that. I think there is a cultural issue, and as you might know, and I've worked against these forces too, particularly when I worked in the city of Flint, there was a cultural issue there too, with, hey man, this is Flint, it's shitty, it's always gonna be shitty, like, and not part of my language, but like, why are you even talking to me about this, man, like, please go away. And that was mostly in the context of we were doing our park renovations, and we wanted the homes on the adjacent facing the park to kind of keep up with and buy into some of this change we were trying to get, make a catalyst of change by a big investment in these parks, and we're talking multi-million dollars, and we were like, hey man, can you do something about like all the scrap metal in your front yard? And, you know, we got the feedback we got. But I think there's a cultural change here, and you have, it's not everyone in Bath, you just have a couple bad actors. The problem is, those bad actors do not care. It's not gonna be, you will have to drive them to court, kicking and screaming, and get an order from a judge to get this to happen. And so, I personally, you know,
Well,
the
we-
planner who loves order
Yeah.
would love nothing more than to like go hard. And I've worked in communities where we have before. I
So-
bring up Hancock, but in Hancock, the city council realized what was going on. They realized the doom loop they were in, and they were like, we don't care how many angry people come. We're taking $1 million out of our budget, we're working with consultants, we're bringing on staff, and we're gonna do this thing, and they did, and it went well, and it worked like clockwork. But it's a policy choice that they made, a big one.
Well, yes, and it takes bravery, to do it, and but, I mean, there's sufficient feedback from the community, that this is a problem. Now, when it comes to snow and ice removal or cleaning up junk, there are other pathways, and the township can,
Snow and ice
implement-
removal, I don't think is a big, most people might not know that they're even, they're supposed to clean their sidewalks. That might just be that could honestly be an informational thing on our end, I'm serious.
That's very
about
true.
that.
Like educational.
But the junk cars, you know, and I know for sure some of the properties we're thinking of that come to mind, I mean, it's gonna be a whole thing.
But when you talk about cleaning up the township too, I mean, there are cars parked in front lawns and all over the place. There's a township not very far from here that does not allow cars to park on non-paved areas in your front yard, period.
Oh,
You're
really?
gonna park, what's that?
I didn't know that.
Oh, Meridian, yeah, you cannot park a car in the front yard unless it's on a paved surface. And
Wow.
if your paved surface, if you got a two-car garage, you got a 16-foot wide driveway. That's it. If you want a bit more than that, you gotta go to the board and get, you know, make the case as to why you need something more.
What if you took all the grass out and paved the whole thing?
You couldn't do that without getting a permit.
Where I was before the planning, we only allowed them so much of their lot to be covered,
Yep.
to be paved.
I think we just have to be wise in the battles that we pick.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's some
Yeah.
recent history of maybe not making some good choices on that front, and we don't wanna go down that same road. But I think picking the battles that sidewalks and snow enforcement seems like a pretty obvious one to start with and go from there. And I do think that having those cars and junk areas cleaned up would generate some positive response from the community, not from the landowner certainly, but from the community that drive by that continuously.
Well,
I think there would be,
And
it
here's-
would be well received.
Can I say one more thing that, because, beknownst to you guys, we actually, and I'm not gonna go into the details of it, cause it's gonna come out, but there's enforcement action that we're taking soon on a property owner, we're kinda gearing up for that conversation right now. Again, it's gonna be a whole thing, and, some of us staff are talking internally. It's tough because the position that the township has taken is, you know, it's a, complaint driven, but it puts neighbors and, property owners in a weird scenario, because they probably don't love that junk car that's sitting, or multiple junk cars that are sitting in their back, you know, their neighbor's backyard, but they look at it every day. But the current edict that, you know, how it's coming down, or how it's being, how the policy works in reality, is that neighbor either has to live with it, or they have to rat out their neighbor, and who do they think their neighbor is gonna think ratted them out? They're
Right.
gonna know, and now you're dealing with a pissed off neighbor for the next 20 years you live in your home. Is that a relationship worth, so they might not love the situation they're in, but they might not see a viable way out. And right now, what we see is most of our complaints come in when people are ready to sell their home.
Well, the other issue too is storage of travel trailers and campers and stuff like that. Where do you store those things on your property?
Wherever you want.
Well, right now, that's true.
Well, I think it depends.
Our HOA says no, and they enforce it.
Oh,
To
ours
the
does too.
sidewalk, we get the notice several times as the season comes in, we are,
Well, Our
Getting
HOA is the same thing. You can't store a boat, you can't store a trailer in your yard, on your driveway, any place on your property. If you're gonna be there for a week while you're doing
And I
something,
think
okay.
some of this depends on the different zoning districts, what the rules are, like, no private roads in a rural area, cause we want it to be rural, blah, 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 well, you probably can get away with more of those kinds of things in a rural area than in a development area, say, so.
Well, you would hope that would be the case.
Yeah.
I would hope that would be the case.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just one comment, in terms of something that would be reasonable, in terms of sidewalk clearing, I don't think it would, I think we could justify, an expectation that the code compliance person, enforces sidewalk clearing of snow and ice on those pathways that lead to schools.
Well,
And that
I-
can be something that should be done now ahead of the new pretty sidewalk enforcement future plan.
Great, yeah, I mean, I agree with that fully, I think that there's a board member here and, yeah.
So would you do that through a mailing? To, give them a heads up on that?
I'm not sure what
Educate-
best
is it-
practices are for that, but.
Like an educational thing?
Well, cause that was what I think,
I wonder if there would be some money in the Safe Routes to School budget, but they do have education as part of their, use. I don't know if that would be something that they might be able to fund. I mean, it wouldn't be a
funded
major cost, but I don't know.
Bike blender.
I know that a part of our plan right now, and I think what you're saying is, hey, let's start enforcement now. What George is saying is, a part of the plan has always been, is get the new sidewalks in place, educate and enforce. Because we'll get the sidewalks in place in the summer, which gives us all fall to do our mailings, probably with the tax letter going out.
And I think even, education could start now with,
Before.
new sidewalks are coming. I saw a complaint on Facebook this week, what about all the sidewalk money, why isn't anything going on with that? So, maybe just sort of an announcement type, Friday report, whatever. The new sidewalks are coming, there will be also new rules and codes enforcement
I mean, I'm into
coming
that, I think,
along
you
with that
know,
too.
I think that would be good to, in my
Get ahead of
personal
it.
opinion, I'm not trying to take over, but I think you should bring that to the board.
Yeah, preemptive strike, I think would be the best way to do it.
Well, yeah,
You could
My
start
conscience will
waivers.
be clear if a small child falls on, slips on ice, cracks their head and dies. Y'all will have to live with yourself.
Does the township have sidewalks that they're responsible for clearing,
yes,
like in Park Lake maybe, or
they have them in,
There's
We
a
don't have
couple
any
areas,
sidewalks
yeah.
there.
there's none
Where
by
there's-
the beach
Right,
area?
but that's the only place, right?
Okay, but that's a township sidewalk, right?
Yep.
Was that cleared?
Probably.
So Cousins Park, it had been cleared, and so, but there was
Okay.
residual ice from today. So,
but some of the school property had not been.
no, it had not been, I mean, earlier cleared, but there was still at least like an inch of slushy ice snow.
But they also knew they didn't have school today, too.
That doesn't make
Right,
people
I'm
stop
just
walking.
saying, but,
Probably even more.
Anyhow, thank you for,
That's
having the
okay,
conversation.
I was gonna, I'm the outlier here, so I was gonna tell you my opinion of how this should be dealt with, but that probably shouldn't be taking up time, cause I'm an outlier on this one.
You're also a property owner on Main Street with uncleared sidewalks.
Was it uncleared?
Let's hear it, John.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
We normally have it cleared, so normally Jim and I get together and, oh, interesting, okay. I think we should have a sidewalk district, just like we have lighting districts. And I think that the safe routes to school thing, we used a lot of general taxpayer money to fund this. And I think it would only be reasonable that we use a certain amount, not totally funded by general tax revenue, but I think that it should be done under the DPW to keep the sidewalks in the safe route to school area cleared, so that it does happen. Because if you're gonna put it back on the property owner, that's fine, but there's a lot of property owners that are absentee, there's some properties that have no development on them, there's some property owners that are owned by people that are not here in the winter. They go on vacation to southern climates. And so there's gonna be a lot of ramifications to enforcing this. And I think that it would be reasonable to just have a sidewalk district, have the property owners pay a certain amount every year, and the sidewalk gets cleared. Because you're gonna have the county go down and plow the road and put the snow right back on that sidewalk.
Yeah.
Now, whose responsibility is it? The property owner removed it once, the county put it back. Is it still their responsibility to move it?
Still their responsibility.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna take that snow and put it back in the street, then what happens?
You can't, that'd be a violation of the ordinance.
Well, what am I gonna do with it?
Throw it in your yard.
You can solve some problems, I trust you.
But you understand where I'm going with
I do,
this.
I do.
And when I was on the DDA board, I said we should, because I thought we should do the sidewalks as part of the DDA before Safe Routes to School even came on board with it. And didn't get any traction, but nevertheless. But I think that, and I know you're not gonna, some people are not gonna like this, that I don't know what your position is, but it would make a full-time DPW person that would be a year-round job as opposed to a seasonal job. Because now they can do certain amount of winter maintenance, they could do certain amount of equipment maintenance, and I'm sure that Ben can find things for them to do in the buildings, or repairing equipment for the spring, or building something that the parks need to make a full-time job for somebody, as opposed to always looking for a new person every summer that wants a part-time job.
Yeah, my only concern with that is that that could also be viewed as a poison pill, where
Yes,
you create
it could.
legacy costs,
Yes, it
and then
could.
you take the
Yes,
whole effort.
that is correct, and I'm opposed to legacy costs, but nevertheless, I think there's a certain amount of community benefit to all of us contributing to a safe route for children to get to school.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that it's not a heavy lift to do some enforcement early. Create a change in atmosphere, or
Yes.
change in attitudes.
Yes.
To know that, in fact, I can get my $20 fine or whatever it is.
Right,
And I think after a few enforcement activities and people seeing other people's sidewalks cleaned up, they'll just do it. I mean, and that's what all municipalities do.
Well, if they
enforce it.
don't do it, the ordinance we're gonna be taking a look at in it says if they don't do it, the township's gonna do it and bill them, so it's gonna get done.
Yeah, it'll get
Right.
done, by this new code, it'll get done either way, and then we did that intentionally because we've seen good success in our mowing ordinance that way. Mowing used to be an issue, it was a heavy lift every time we tried to do it, we couldn't get Tim Horton's old abandoned building to mow to save our lives. We did the publication, we did the education piece, and now we just call it Spartan Lawn Care, goes on their tax bill,
yeah.
no worries.
That's the way to do it.
Why don't we just do that then?
That's what we're trying to do,
that's
that's
what
what
our
ordinance
ordinance
does.
Ultimately, that's what we would do, yeah.
That's what the ordinance
Our
does.
would do.
We would like to give you instant gratification, but
No way.
Is that something you wanna talk about with the board, Kate?
Yes, that, I have that in my notes to bring up
Okay.
at our next meeting.
Thank you,
She's taking copious notes.
thank you.
You mentioned, John, about having the sidewalk district be the same as the street light district. How would they be the same? Because
No, I think you
No, I
just
said
meant
similar.
Formatted the same, not.
Formatted, I'm
change
sorry,
geographic
similar,
area.
similar concept, right?
So would the people in the sidewalk district be only those people who have sidewalks adjacent to their property? Or would it be a larger area because they walk on it?
That's just what would be
That
hard
would
to
have to be part of
determine.
the discussion, that's,
Yeah.
that would be an issue, yes.
I think the plan right now, again, going back to what because we've talked about this a couple, over the year, I guess, is this ordinance will come, this will get some rules in place, but this will be followed by a policy conversation this summer and fall that will have to happen at the board level of how they wanna do this. Cause there's another way is there's a millage
Yep. Yep,
that's passed, and the millage funds the sidewalks.
yep. Yep,
But that's above my pay grade.
yep, me too. Yep, it's a discussion that we probably should have. All right, can we talk about the sidewalk ordinance now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we changed up, there was a couple edits that we made, some feedback from last time. We did introduce, under the order to construct or repair, we put some things into a table to make it a little bit more reader friendly and just user friendly overall. I think this helps organize the difference between, construct versus maintenance. And then also, we did 3 parcels or more, that's where board action would come in, cause that'd be large sections that are getting handled. That could be more of a political decision where maybe elected officials need to weigh in. If it's just an enforcement action of a property or two that needs to be maintained, we can handle that administratively, we don't need to escalate every little thing to the board.
I have a comment on that particular element.
Yeah,
Is that on page 6? Sorry to interrupt.
I'm on page 6 right now, yeah. I don't know what page.
Can we drop back, are we gonna go through this thing? Page by page or not? No, page 3, I got just some comments on here.
Yeah,
We talked about having the board of trustees involved in some things that I don't think they should be involved in.
okay. Where
But
at?
Can you tell us where you are, Ray?
page 3 of 13.
Okay.
Okay.
First one, 5833C, something was added in, Board of Trustees or the ordinance compliance officer shall determine compliance of obstruction. Why is the Board of Trustees gonna get involved in that?
And repair standards, we need them to be involved in repair standards if it's 3 parcels or more.
But that's a standard that's township-wide, no matter what. I mean, if you got bad sidewalk, you gotta bring it back to,
Well, somebody's gotta determine if it's bad, we just wanted to,
But
it'll
it shouldn't-
probably be by the zoning administrator or the ordinance compliance, but we don't wanna take that away from the board. They wanna use their authority as the board to say, yeah, this is actually pretty bad, we're gonna step in here.
we better have our, I guess it becomes enforcement again. The person checking the sidewalks knows what the standards are. If it doesn't meet standards, you know, we should have written standards, say, this is what it's gotta be.
Yeah.
And we do back, we do
Yeah, we even got pictures.
And so, why does the Board of Trustees have to get involved in that?
We just wanted to reserve their right to do so if they deem necessary. I guess it's just a tool in the toolbox, we felt it goes better there. If this body feels
Yeah.
like we should remove that, like, we're more than happy to strike that.
Does this mean adjacent parcels, or just any 3 in
Designated area.
designated
Yeah,
area?
any 3 within a designated area, they'd probably likely be attached, we can clarify that.
So,
What is designated area?
so under definitions, it's ambiguous, it's however it's defined by
Right.
whomever, so
Yeah, it is.
this is a good point, cause.
Yep.
Is it a block? Is it a quarter
Well,
mile?
that,
Is it
again,
a,
sometimes in planning and in ordinance, like a big one that planners use a lot. And, I've used several times in my time here to mitigate somebody from putting a shipping container on their home, is character of the community. It's not defined, it's subjective, it's ambiguous. It's intentionally ambiguous because we're letting the board, through their power as being elected, if some issue was to come, they now get to determine the area. Sometimes if you too neatly define this, you box in what people are able to do.
Right.
So
And I can't foresee all possible situations.
here's the concern I have, and I brought this up the last time we discussed this, is that if the expectation is the board is gonna have to act in order to move forward on something that is clearly out of compliance with the ordinance, it moves it into a political realm. And then that creates a stink when that's not necessary. The board will always have ultimate authority, and so we don't need to articulate that they have authority within this. They could always co-opt and move forward with, enforcement actions.
100% agree with that, and that's why I think to Ray's point here on 5833C, if board of trustees should be removed there, just for purposes of creating a more clear process, and like, these are the individuals, that way they can't obfuscate their responsibility and say, well, I'm just a guy, it says the board should probably do that, they're higher than me.
Right.
I'm fine, I get that.
And the same comment for A and B on the next section.
in that same section, then it seems like the need for a separate A and B, where A is 2 parcels or less, and B includes the board of trustees, and now we're in 3 parcels or more in this ambiguous designated area.
I think that.
I mean, you could have 3 areas of 1 instead of one designated area of 3. So I don't understand the need for 2 separate designations, other than it just gives more people the authority to cause
Yeah,
change
we
or
wonder,
enforce or
and
whatever.
again, we're not creating this out of whole cloth, like, we're getting this language
Right.
from other communities, and
Okay.
usually communities would reserve the right for the elected body to have some say here.
Just to bring you up to date of where I am, I worked for Meridian Township for 14 years as Director of Public Works. their policy down there is, they have split the township up into, I think, 5 or 7 different areas. They inspect all the sidewalks in each one of those areas on an annual basis. So in other words, maybe on a 7-year, they got 7 areas, a 7-year rotation. So each area is designated right up front. This is the area we're gonna inspect now. They go out, paint the sidewalks that have to be done, and it's always enough that requires a contractor to come in and do this stuff. So they always go through this process where they have to pass the board has to pass a resolution, do the whole thing through the state requirements. Here it's a little bit harder maybe, but you could do that here too, just say, okay, we've got a lot of sidewalks in this area, that's gonna be a district. This other subdivision with the one next to it could be another district, but designate those things right up front. Don't do it as the sidewalks need to be fixed. And then there's no question what the district is. And the only reason to have the 1 or 2 in there is you might have one sidewalk that got missed or something in another district someplace that can't wait 3 years to get
Inspected.
Back
stuff
in
done,
rotation.
so just do it. So, I think that's what we gotta do is designate the districts up front, don't wait for, cause you're right, it could be one here, one there, maybe
One-
3 individual properties, not one.
Well, in Bath, we don't, it's not like we have a ton of sidewalks either,
No.
though. Meridian's got far more. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
You, really, one individual in a vehicle should be able to canvass a township in a day, not even. And-
Jason just did.
It can't be, it can't
Well,
be,
when we did the sidewalk audit, we were able, I mean, I was a part of that, we were able to do that in 2 teams in one day. And that was us going through with a fine, George was a part of that, we were going through with a fine tooth comb that day, and we still got it done in a 5-hour
so
period.
did you actually walk the sidewalks or just drive by?
Yeah, we walked most of them, honestly.
Okay, cause to inspect it, they really gotta walk them,
Yeah.
you can't just drive by.
So say Hunter's Crossing is a district because it's a contained area. 3 enforcement actions, I don't think should, lead up to board action, cause that could be 3 disparate parts of that subdivision.
Yeah, I think if they weren't, and that's why I was gonna say, we could define that and say contiguous parcels.
You define abutting and adjacent.
Yeah, we could define that the district area should be contiguous parcels, cause that was our intent. But, if it was 3 separate parcels on there, we'd likely just roll this, the easiest low hanging fruit way for us, which is, here's a maintenance to fix your sidewalks, failure to do so will result in us bidding the contract and being assessed your taxes, you have 5 years to pay it. And it should work like clockwork, it really should, which is how our grass cutting works now. So I hope that's okay, so, do we, going back, so should we go through this ordinance, and look for where we feel the board has been given authority? Or are we fine with just leaving it and then cleaning up the contiguous language? What's the pleasure?
I believe the board always has authority.
Agreed.
So taking their name out of it does not harm this ordinance,
Okay.
because they always have the authority.
Would you want some catch-all language, we'll take their name out of the entire thing, but maybe under, this 58.33, we just say that? Ultimately, the board has all authority to enforce and can take any action.
They know that, why do we have to put that in the ordinance?
I don't know,
Who knows that? You
the
know that?
law planning
board
side,
knows that.
the law planning side of me just wants it to be in writing.
I agree.
Cause I just like being in front of a judge and the
Yep.
board took action and now the judge is like, it's on your ordinance.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that.
But it's just a catch-all, and then everywhere else we can remove it, that way it's clear, the responsibility does fall on these individuals.
Okay, if we're going on from that, the next page.
Make sure you keep.
Oh, wait, I'm still on.
Oh,
Okay.
still in this one, okay.
So section 5835, there's the use of a male-specific pronoun, to match the,
Not great.
change elsewhere, you might wanna change
I'm
his
sorry.
lot or parcel to their lot or parcel.
That is, thank you, that's a miss on us, where's that at?
It's the second line of A.
Thanks, Jason, that was on my list as well.
Jason
Okay,
knows
okay.
that we've been, as
Yep,
we go
yep.
through the ordinance, we've tried to, and we even did a
Yep.
cleanup ordinance where we tried to remove a bunch of gender language,
3,
so sorry about that.
Yep, good point.
in the very bottom paragraph in A.
I'm just more concerned about parallel construction here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
No,
that.
that's good.
It's a good catch.
On the next page, number 3,
Okay.
any section of sidewalk tilted in excess of 1 inch on the inside edge to the outside, inside edge to the outside edge. Who cares? If that from one edge to the opposite edge, that's it. Then delete the second sentence altogether.
Okay.
You get a break, I had no comments on that at all.
Hell was that?
Maybe I should have.
Okay.
On the next one, on page 6, talks about 3 or more parcels, 1 or 2 parcels, that may change altogether, but anyway. Halfway down, it talks, all property owners within the established district. Well, that doesn't work too well, because we talk about, what's the district? And I may be in the district just because I live next door to this guy whose sidewalks are falling apart. Well, you're not gonna assess me. So, whose properties are gonna be, you know?
The board sets the district.
The district, but they don't set which property owners are.
Well, if you're in the district, then you're, yeah,
Okay, in other words, if we've got a subdivision that's got some areas where the sidewalk is bad,
yeah.
who's responsible for fixing that? The entire subdivision, or just the people who?
The
So-
board, that's why the board will determine, that's why we kind of put it on them, they're the elected officials, this is a broader example of a large sidewalk construction. They might assess that half the subdivisions within the district, and those properties will be assessed for the repairs.
I can see a hornet's nest on that.
No, for
Because-
sure, that's why we
because-
put it.
Because the sidewalk, we said earlier, that individual property owners, whether his or hers came in, ago, it shall be the responsibility of every lot owner to keep the sidewalks adjacent to their lot in good repair. Now you're telling me I'm the house next door to the one, you're gonna tell me you're gonna assess me for that?
I guess if the board determined to do so, but if everything is working properly, it should never even get to that point.
No, it won't, because if you set the thing up, the only people who are gonna get assessed are the ones who have, the district does not
Yeah,
mean
the
every.
district should never come into play, but it's there because never is a word that could, you know, it doesn't mean anything, could happen. Enforcement could get really lax for 10 years and then the board might want a tool to remediate.
Well, you gotta define what a district is then.
They're gonna, the
The,
board
di-
will.
the district is the entire street lighting district, or sidewalk, whatever. But not everybody in that district is responsible for repairs or constructing sidewalks. It's only the ones who have a sidewalk in front of their house.
What I'm saying is that we can write it to read like that, but that's not how this reads.
I know it's not, that's why I don't like it.
Well, does this apply to HOAs?
It would
Yes,
apply
it
to HOAs,
does.
Sure,
yeah.
yeah,
It
yeah.
would apply to
Very
HOAs.
clear.
Everybody.
In my HOA, I've got the sidewalk on my property, it's very clear, I'm responsible
Yeah.
for clearing it, repair of it.
Yep.
And the guy across the street doesn't have any sidewalk, and he's happier than hell about it. But there is, I knew that going in, it's very clear in the documents that I'm responsible and to take care of that.
Yeah.
And we all are aware of it, and in our neighborhood, you will take care of your sidewalk, otherwise you'll find dog poo.
One of the reasons we didn't define district though, and I think it's somewhat undefinable, is it depends on, it depends on what the situation the board's gonna be reviewing at that time. How many affected properties are there? How traveled of an area is this section of sidewalk? That could all come into play. So if we were to come in and say, the district is all affected properties, plus whoever's across the street, we could say that, and then we've defined the district, but that might not be the best approach given the situation, because it might be a section of sidewalk that's on the way to school and it's really heavy traffic, and so maybe at the time, the board wants to broaden that district out and assess more property owners. I don't know, that's why it was left undefined, that way the board could, in their role, define it.
Well, I guess I didn't ask the
Sure.
right question, Miles. Is this language going to apply to HOAs as far
Yeah.
as the township is concerned? Or are
We super-
HOAs
no, we
their own
super-
standalone
We
entity?
supersede them when it comes to sidewalks. They can have language in addition to our standards, but they can't go less than our standards.
Okay, but the enforcement is still gonna fall back on the township,
We
not the
will
HOA?
enforce within the HOA, yep,
Okay,
But just to our standards,
to our standards.
not
If
if
they have
theirs are,
standards.
not if
we
theirs
got-
are tighter.
If theirs are tighter, they will have to enforce theirs.
okay.
Believe me, there's
See, I
an
can see-
HOA I know that can get away with it.
Well, some HOAs are better at enforcing than others. We have HOAs in the community that are famous for their inability to enforce.
Are you talking about Mead Creek again?
I'm not talking about it, I'm saying,
Well, I guess I'm still confused by district, because the entire township could be a district.
yeah, the board determines, so they could be.
Why does the board have to determine anything?
Because that is how, it's how it reads. If we don't.
I know it's
want
how it reads.
If we don't want it to read like that, then give us a solution to the issue. Or do you want us to get
Without
rid-
boxing us in.
No,
So you
I guess
want
my
us to
solution
get
to the
rid of-
issue would be, the district, this is the district, we're gonna look at sidewalks now, this is the entire district. The only people impacted are gonna be the ones who have to have repairs done.
You want us to set the district now. You want us to map out and create a district.
That would make it simpler, but,
I mean, so, no, I mean,
Yeah, well-
that's fair. I mean, that's something
Yeah,
we can
that's-
but
do.
then I think, what I would change in here is say, all property owners having sidewalks to be constructed, because we're talking about the construction stuff, within the established district will be allowed 60 days. We need to define which property owners we're talking about. The only property owners we're talking about, as far as I'm concerned, are the ones who have sidewalks to be constructed, or in next case, to be maintained. Those are the ones we're talking about. Those are the ones that are gonna get assessed.
What about subdivisions that have only one sidewalk along the road?
Same thing. I mean, that's an issue for every township. I mean, that's one of the complaints I think people have had, is that,
Yes, it is.
especially on cul-de-sacs.
Geez,
Because if it's sided from one side, not the other side, so half the people are responsible and the other half are not.
Yes,
Now, that might be
that's an
something-
issue.
It is an issue.
Yeah, it is an issue, because I know people that will not buy where there's a sidewalk.
Really?
They don't want the liability and the responsibility of the sidewalk.
Yeah. Well, there's an issue that came up in Meridian Township again, where the board was considering saying, well, no, somebody made a comment. For new subdivision, let's not tell them they have to put streetlights in. Wait until 75% of the area is developed, and then let the community decide. Well, I point out the problem with that is, when people are buying a house, they wanna know, is there gonna be a streetlight or isn't there gonna be a streetlight?
Right.
They don't wait for the mood of the community to decide, am I gonna get a streetlight or not?
Yeah.
So I think they
Okay.
threw that away.
I agree, Ray.
So I guess my goal here is to get this sidewalk language back to the board.
Yeah,
Okay,
So
go ahead.
I'm hearing what you're saying, Ray, so a couple of things. One, the options as I see them is, one, we just strike the whole 3 parcels or more, and we just enforce one way, which is if it's in front of your house, you're getting it built, and that cleans all this up. So that's option 1. Option 2 is, and it wouldn't take too much GIS work to do, I map out, cause I already have a sidewalk map, I just overlay that over a parcel map, and I say, all these people are in the district. Any repairs that are needed are assessed to this area.
Would that include any new build?
Yeah, I mean, anybody with sidewalk in front of them. Those are the 2 options as I see it for what you're saying.
The question I've got with that is, at what point does the state law require that the township or city or whatever passes a resolution and goes through the whole public hearing process before they actually order the construction to be done?
In terms of sidewalks, I don't know if there's any state
don't know if there's
guidance on
not.
sidewalks.
not that I'm aware of,
Maybe not,
On roads for sure.
right.
yeah. Maybe there's not, I don't know, maybe there's not.
I like option 1, it's simple, the board can always have influence, they can do it either directly or they can do it indirectly through lack of enforcement, which has
Hearing
been
Ray's
done.
comments, I like option 1 too, and we'll have that catch-all on there about the board can do anything at any time, so just know that.
It just seems the most adequate.
At the beginning of the ordinance.
We'll put that at the beginning, under authority.
Just in general, and this section here, there's one section in both these things I think we need to delete, whatever we do.
Okay.
And that's when you're halfway down through, it says here, township shall, well, it goes,
Where are you at, Ray?
He's
in
he's
fir-
in the table, I can see,
There's 3 and 4, yeah. The one that's the longest one there,
Page 6.
that one
It
will get
says-
removed, Ray, by
Yeah,
the way.
page
because
6.
We're deleting.
Page
That's
six.
Yeah, okay.
those are more.
yeah, okay, well, go to the other one then. Well, the other one, with the maintenance one,
Yeah,
That's below
this,
construction.
this is, well, one,
I'll show you
this is 1 or 2
It's
parcels.
down here now.
Is he?
Yeah,
sorry,
down
he's
here.
he's right here, he's
Yeah.
in this table, under
Yeah.
construction and maintenance,
Yeah, now,
Maintenance.
both these columns here are construction,
Right-hand side.
page 6.
yeah.
Page
Both these
6.
columns are construction. In the one that says 1 or 2 parcels, there's maintenance all through this thing, it should say construction instead of maintenance.
Okay, and let me just get, fair point, let me get that sheet too from you whenever. we're
Yeah,
done
you can have
today.
this whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And you can see on the other, well, we deleted that, so let's go to the next page.
Yeah,
Let's see now. Yeah, okay, this is, now we get to the next page, it's all maintenance. And this is what we do need, if we're gonna keep this in here. We've got it where construction assessments may be paid back over a 5-year period, however the property owner has the option to pay. Then it says, if the adjacent property owner is the only beneficiary of the property, the owner shall be allowed this amount of time.
we
to
can
get-
take all that, that's,
Take that out.
again, the left is all gone now,
Yeah.
we're only keeping the right column.
Okay. Okay. And same thing on the right column, this one here too.
That's why I like that option one, cause it does away with that confusion of multiple property owners at once. So,
Yeah,
okay, wrong.
yeah. On this one here, too, there's some, you can have this thing here, this place in here where it says installation or replacement, that's maintenance.
Okay,
Maintenance in some cases could be grinding off the,
yeah, the
Whatever we-
rise
whatever,
or
yeah.
crack sealing, sure.
on the next page, E, preparation of subgrade. Now this I know you got from someplace. The only problem I've got with this, subgrade shall be prepared by excavating or filling to the required elevation of the bottom of the concrete. We don't want them to excavate just down to the bottom of the concrete, where the concrete's gonna go. Cause that might be, you know, vegetation, or that would not be, class 2 fill. I think they ought to excavate 4 inches below and then backfill with class 2 fill. Otherwise, you get sidewalk going down on, not muck, but topsoil. You don't want that, 'cause then there's no drainage below, underneath that, so.
Yeah, and I know with this engineering stuff, I mean, Ray, obviously, you have a lot,
Yeah.
just give us what your suggested language
I
is.
just
I
said
have
4
a
inches.
question.
Okay,
Do we need to have these standards in this ordinance or refer to the standards so that standards, they sometimes change?
no,
And we don't have to go
usually, this
back.
question comes up, and this is the same answer I'll give you with it, they
Okay.
need to be in the ordinance, they're
Okay.
unenforceable if they're not in the ordinance.
Yep.
Unless you reference like some kind of like state statute, like we do with glamps, so because the state creates those and they update them annually, we can reference those within the ordinance, but they have, it's a whole thing to go into
Okay.
glamps.
Did you say glamps?
Yeah, that's the acronym, it's
Isn't it
Jim-
GAMPS?
How do you say it? GAMPS?
Yeah, is there L in
I
there?
don't know. Okay, that sounds good, General Agricultural Management, whatever.
I thought it was GAMPS.
This next is just a question. Under E, number 5, it says the contractor shall call the township building department. They're the ones that would be handling this inspection of the forms for the sidewalk and stuff like that. I don't know if the building department is the right one to.
It'd be the engineering department. But for all intents and purposes, they want to be talking to,
Somebody.
yeah.
Next page, contraction
I'll
joints.
change it to engineering.
Contraction joints. We got rid of that one thing I had. Now we've got in here a divider strip 3.5 inches in, I don't know what that is. So that such joints may be formed with a grooving tool for a width of 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch, which is fine, the cut's gonna be that narrow. It doesn't say how deep it should be. Then it says divider strips 3.5 inches in thickness. I don't know, that doesn't fit in here at all. That should just get deleted.
They should get deleted, what? I mean, I'll get your comment.
Divider strips 3/4 inch in thickness.
Okay,
That doesn't fit in this whole thing at all.
3.5 inch?
Yeah, 3.5 inch thickness.
Does that mean height?
No,
It might be height, but that would be for construction joints, not contraction joints. Contraction joint is just a
Right.
saw cut or just a tool
Right.
joint. But the tool joint, now the saw cut says it shall be not less than 1/4 the thickness of the sidewalk, which is fine. We need to do the same kind of thing with a tool joint, say how deep it's gonna be.
Right.
Expansion joint is made out of that fiber bituminous.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're talking about construction, contraction
They're
joints.
two different things.
Yes, they are.
But they've got the,
Is,
construction joint is properly done back
is a
here.
tool joint handled by the, and I don't know, I'm asking, cause again, I'm not an engineer, right? Is that handled the depth of that by the depth of slab under 7?
it's handled by the depth of the tool.
Yeah, but the depth's of the tool, and I
So it-
can't tell you what the tool
So
is.
I guess I'm asking, so
It
it
needs-
does need to be separately defined, the depth of it?
I think it
Correct.
should be, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. We don't want them
You're
just to put a.
describing how far that tool goes down into the.
Where does it reference tool
Correct.
joint?
And these
There's
contraction
probably some type
joints,
of standard.
the reason for the contraction joints is that a long pour of sidewalk is going to crack.
Oh, yeah,
These joints, try to make it crack on the joint.
correct,
And so it's gotta be deep enough so it'll be kind of a weak place, so it'll actually crack there.
correct.
Where do you see the tool joint?
The
B,
blue part on B,
On B, yeah, under
B.
contraction joints.
the grooving,
page 9, top.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, cool.
yeah.
Alright, thank you. And then you can see the green text there, nobody get confused, we were just defining what some of these joints mean for us and then.
But the-
you
but these
guys-
definitions-
Thank you for the,
These definitions though only apply to bridges and buildings, they don't apply to sidewalks.
Okay, again, we're working, we're way outside our depth here
Yeah.
on this, so. Great, thank you, we tried.
Bye-bye.
Pathways, you crossed out trail and put pathways, we need to do that through this whole document, this trail is mixed, word trail is mixed in here in several places.
Okay.
And D doesn't fit here at all. That's non-motorized trail shall be constructed of. The-
No, it should be pathway, it should be constructed asphalt mix. right?
Well, that's the other question I've got. Back up in A, it says non-motorized pathways shall be constructed of hot mix asphalt. It doesn't give any options.
It says may.
We wanted, well.
It says
no,
shall now.
Change it shall.
Yeah,
It says
change it to
shall.
shall, because we wanted pathways to be,
Pathways is different than trails.
pathways is different than trails.
But
Trails have options,
Yeah, but it-
pathways do not.
Well,
Yeah.
pathways could still be concrete.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
we ought to leave concrete in there, 4-inch
Yeah.
thick concrete or hot mix asphalt.
Well, on D, isn't that where the addition of non-motorized trails may be constructed of hot mix asphalt, crushed
That's
asphalt?
trails, we're not talking about trails, we're talking about
Right.
pathways.
No,
Now you're
and
talking
that's-
about-
D does, yeah, yes, that's correct, D does come in and say, non-motorized trails, but it doesn't, it's confusing, cause we need to clean that up. So
Yeah.
both of you are correct, we need to define and clean up.
Trails, pathways.
so are you
And
saying,
D, you can just, if you put something up in A to say that pathways can be concrete,
I wish I had it printed out.
or whatever else.
Yeah.
I think you just delete D altogether.
So within that
Delete
section,
will get deleted altogether, we need to clean up what you, we tried to fix what was going on in A by creating a D, it's duplicitous and confusing.
so for item B, one of my pet peeves is, if we're not gonna require it, why do we have it? And it seems a little sloppy to just say, it's encouraged that one establishes.
I did have a note on that, why the change, it didn't used to read that way.
Somebody will just go,
I don't know, there's probably some feedback we got
I
and
think-
change it, I mean, this has been through the ringer, so would we wanna take it,
I would-
that's just a requirement?
I would just say the gravel base shall be
Okay.
E,
10 feet wide
58,
or,
38B.
B.
what page you're on page
It's on
10, George?
page 10, sorry,
yep.
I'm trying to take notes and follow along.
no, you're fine.
So
I
when it
just
comes
was
to
talking.
non-motorized pathways, the maintenance of all pathways in the township is gonna be on the township's dime, correct?
Yeah, depending, I mean, like, some of our pathways, like on Saginaw, MDOT,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, realistically, the only entity is gonna be a government entity that creates pathways,
Yeah,
right?
pathways will most likely always be created by a municipality, I could see a scenario where like a larger apartment complex may create a pathway.
So, I mean, given that, I would just make that you know, this is a requirement.
So,
Yeah,
so,
I think, well, I already got it struck
Okay,
as a
okay.
requirement.
Okay.
I don't know why we flex there, I don't, it's been going on for a year.
I was just gonna say, there could be a new pathway developed in the new development down
Yeah,
Webster.
agreed, we'll make it a requirement, I don't see any downside to making it not a requirement. Alright, Ray, moving on, page 11,
Just one thing here on, no, the new A. It says, any such violation, I think we'll take the word such out of there, just any violation. We haven't defined violate, you know. That's the second line of A,
Okay.
of new A.
just take any out of there,
No, leave the any in there, just take
Okay.
such out.
okay, oh, sorry, got it, any violation,
Because the first two paragraphs talked about the violations, which you deleted all that.
okay.
And then 5841, I don't know what that is.
Addressing gaps in
There's nothing,
sidewalks.
there's nothing beyond that.
There was nothing beyond it, I don't know why it needs to be there. I'll check, there might have been some language that we're not amending, so it just
could
continued to
be.
be black. So it just stayed here.
Could be, yep.
But check why.
Yeah.
So I have a comment on page 12. So I'm gonna, bear with me here.
Page 12?
Yes. So item G, is curious to me. So item G reads, there shall be provided a pedestrian circulation system, which is insulated as completely as reasonably possible from vehicular circulation system. First comment is, what does that mean? Is that a sidewalk that we're talking about?
Yeah.
And so you have G here that is requiring a sidewalk, but then elsewhere in the ordinance, we say the planning commission may require a sidewalk.
What we're saying is if as a part of the review process, if the planning commission, you're working with the developer, right? And they're like, hey, this is untenable for us, like, we're already doing all these sidewalks, could you guys give us some so we can actually bring this project to the township? I could foresee, cause that's how developers operate, some situation where they're like, give us a little, we'll give you a little. And what we're trying to do through the new L is saying, okay, if the planning commission and their, wisdom gives you a little, quote unquote, in this scenario, we want you to maintain that right of way, cause we wanna reserve the space, we don't want the nightmare scenario we're working through on Webster Road, where we gotta go to every single property owner and work out these side deals for easements. So that's all it's saying, sidewalks are required, the only body that can deviate from that is the planning commission as a part of the site review process. If they choose to do so, you developer are required to leave us the space.
So, but we have a larger issue with G, and so that is, back in August of 2019, many of us here, approved an ordinance, or amendment change to item G that mandated, that sidewalks be built within the Downtown Development Authority District. The board, approved that language on October 7 of 2019. And that never made it into the Code of Ordinances. So I have all the documentation here.
I'll get it.
And the reason,
Is it because of the DDA getting dissolved or something weird like that?
I think it was between the pandemic, changing of planning staff, that just
It
things fell
wouldn't be
through
the
the.
first ordinance I've heard of in Bath that hasn't been codified.
Yeah.
So we've dealt with a couple of those.
So, and I looked into this because I was being bugged by, the new I development and, with, the requirement for building sidewalks, in the Downtown Development Authority. I could not find it in our ordinances, so I had to go back to old meeting minutes. Anyhow, I don't know, I mean,
Let me get that.
so you have the language there, you
Get
have.
the muni code.
But I do wonder to what extent, does that affect this discussion, or if it,
I don't think it does, I think it just reinforces, it's another tool in the toolbox to require sidewalks. And all this does is say, hey, if through the guidance of the review process, yeah, that doesn't at all, it just strengthens it, so that's good. So thanks for finding that.
It allows us to keep a right of way for future
Yeah, that way we got options down the road, which is something that we don't have right now in some of these areas, and it sucks.
In reading this thing, B to me is good. It's kind of what we're talking about with our tree ordinance. I don't know how we can use that to enforce some of the stuff that we don't have a special ordinance for right now, but,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's what we're talking about as far as the site plan review process.
yeah.
But it's them, you need to get to them with the trees before that, cause they're clear cut on the front end.
Well,
That's the conversation we're having.
Yeah, they can't clear cut until they get the site plan approved.
Yeah. Okay, but that's a broader topic. Alright, thank you all. I know that's painful to go page by page, and I know we've been talking about this a lot, but if that was all, like, I can work with that feedback.
Okay, everybody satisfied with where we're at? Oh, we're moving right along. Non-motorized transportation plan, chapter 4.
Okay, Williams and Works sent me, what they've got so far for their goals and objectives for the non-motorized plan. So they've asked me to bring this to you guys and get some feedback, so it was included in your packets. I don't need any feedback tonight necessarily, but if everyone could take a look at this and see what they think. John, I could even put this in the, it's been introduced tonight, I'm not gonna read through it word by word, if that's
No,
okay.
no, I don't think it's necessary.
But I can put it in the packet next meeting too, so everyone can come back with some thoughts.
Has everybody got a copy of it? We don't need it twice, do we?
If people needed time, whatever the pleasure is.
The only comment I had, visiting workshops, top corridors for safety, and they're listed here. They're not areas of, and Chandler Road is listed twice.
Okay,
But if you go to the next page, goals and objectives, Chandler Road is not mentioned at all.
it's good feedback. And I would imagine, this is William and Works, they do this in a million municipalities, it's their first shot at
Yeah.
it, so they're looking for that.
I have a small comment. Under recreation, item number 2, just to be consistent with the language and definitions that we just talked about. Paved trails, would that be better suited to be paved pathways?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's great. It probably would, and then number 3 would just be trails.
Yeah.
Anything else stand out to you right now?
And again, too, you guys can always like mark it up and email it to me too.
Well,
And I
I'd
think
like
that would be useful too for Williams and Works, to just get a marked up copy.
when do you need this back to them, Miles?
They don't have a straight timeline, but in the next couple weeks probably.
So at the next planning commission meeting would be fine?
Yeah, that'd be
Does everybody concur with that?
I had a couple typos in there.
fine. Okay,
Any objections to that? You'll have all next 2 weeks to look it over?
You're saying he can make mention of it, but you don't have to print out the.
Right, there's no
pages.
sense in printing it out again, I don't think.
Miles, you'll just email that non-motorized plan to us?
yeah, I can
Another
email out
copy.
the language they got now, yeah.
It's in the.
It's in
digital
there
packet.
somewhere, and it's
It's in the
also in
packet.
the rec, so,
It's in the rec plan.
yeah. Well, I mean, it wouldn't be anything to just, make
If
sure.
somebody wants a hard copy of the whole thing, I'm sure you can get it from the staff.
Yeah, that's true. I can print it out, doesn't matter.
But we'll come back prepared to make any comments next planning commission.
Okay.
Okay?
What, just this chapter 4?
Yes, just chapter 4, Ray. Is that,
That'd be great.
is that great?
And if you got some before then, you wanna email it, like, that's great too.
Yep. Okay, report from the planner. Miles, you got anything for us?
No, I don't really have a report, like a formal one that we drafted up this week, I guess I'll just ad hoc say kinda some of the stuff that's going on inside the department right now. Zoning permits have been slow, out of the start of the new year, which isn't unusual for January. People aren't really working on decks and sheds, it's cold and sucks out. We have seen a higher than, anticipated volume of commercial interest in the township. So we had a couple, meetings, you know, this week with possible applicants to bring something to the township. I don't really wanna say, you know, what's going on, because it's all like hearsay at this point. Once, as a part of my staff report, or the report from planner, once we have an application and something's moving forward and it's coming to you guys, and it's like a real thing, of course, we'll always give you guys a heads up on what's going on. The only one that I really feel confident that is like probably a real thing, and you guys likely will see something on that I feel comfortable, and I don't think they would mind bringing forward, is, we're talking about Kessler's yard on Chandler. If you notice the new sign, it's not new, just so everyone's clear, I guess, it's a rehab or replacement of the existing sign. The two parcels just north of that, those have been getting cleaned up, which I know we're all probably very happy about. There's a new owner that's expressed that they want everything very neat and very tidy, which we couldn't be more pleased, of these two parcels, and they cleaned up this no man's land and added that to this parcel, so that's a big win for us as well. But they're looking to, they're an excavating company, I think it's very likely that they'll bring forth probably a medium-sized warehouse project. Have some offices in front, some warehouses in the back for their equipment and to operate out. I guess they do a lot of contracts with Lansing Township, MSU, and so far they seem like great landowners, and I guess, you know, personally, I'm happy to have them doing business in the township.
Yeah, I see they've even done some landscaping in the front too, along the road.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
have.
know exactly what they're gonna bring to you guys, or exactly the form it will take, but that will probably be coming in the next, you know, month or two.
Great place for some sidewalks.
Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
no, it would, I think, yeah, that would be one of their requirements, to put sidewalks, even if it's just in front of their property, that still gives us a little bit of sidewalk there.
Well, I think as they develop, it'd be good if the county could require them to dedicate 15 feet of more
Right
right away
away.
on Chandler Road or something.
Yeah. So yeah, so that's really, you know, on the residential side, things are slow. On the commercial side, things are a little bit more, picking up more than anticipated. It's been interesting.
Wait, question, when you talk about zoning permits, you were talking about building permits? Zone- I mean-
We're talking about zoning permits, so they take different names in different municipalities, and some municipalities, they wrap it as a part of the building permit.
Yeah.
And Bath Township, the form that it's taken is, you get zoning approval first, so you want to build a deck. You need to go through zoning first, we have a separate permit for that. And then, once you've secured zoning, then you move to the building department and go through their whole process. So usually for applicants, we take everything in as one package, so we'll have the zoning permit, the building permit, if they're bundling trades in there, they'll all be together. And then it just flows around the office in one big workflow.
So if somebody's gonna build a single-family home, it still comes across as a zoning permit as opposed to a building permit.
They'll come across zoning first, they can't get building until they get zoning.
Well, I understand that, but to me, it's just confusing when you say zoning permits. How many people are building anything?
Yeah.
I'm used to the building permit.
Building
We
permit.
issued 25 building permits this year, or whatever.
Well, and it depends on, it depends on the setup of the township or the municipality. I mean, a lot of times your planning and zoning will be in the same office. And Bath Township is two different ones, so.
Okay.
And it's all about how the township's funded and different, department budgets and personnel. So there are reasons, I guess, behind it. But that's all I got, John, I was just quickly gonna talk about that.
Thank you. No public? Kate, you got a report for us?
I do not, well, really, our last Board of Trustees meeting was canceled
Yep,
due to lack of agenda items, so I don't have anything from that, other than to say that I did share with Supervisor Fewens Bliss our mention of signage around the township and the discussion from last meeting regarding that.
good.
So now I have a whole list of things to take to the next meeting.
Yes, you do. Let's see, we started with the other, Ray, Cocky?
Nothing here, everything was pretty much covered. That sidewalk thing is gonna be good to have, you know, in the rearview mirror when it's done, that safe routes to school. I'm looking forward to seeing that get
Yeah,
started.
I am too.
Yep.
I think it's a great public benefit project.
Yeah. Did we mention about that letter that the rec commission or advisory group sent to us about getting together? About the Park Lake corridor?
Yes,
Did we schedule anything about that or
we
no?
didn't schedule, but it was mentioned by
It was
the
mentioned,
planner.
He mentioned to talk and see.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to
Adam?
Adam about that, yeah.
Okay, good.
Do you have anything else, Kate?
I do not believe I have anything else. no.
George, you got anything?
I usually like to thank those that work behind the scenes, you know, for us every day, and those that work in the office, very thankful for them. Also, I wanted to ask about, we talked about zoning districts before, and when we were discussing the work plan, I didn't know, we still wanted to bring that back up. Miles stepped out for just a second,
Yeah.
so.
I don't know, let's take a pause till Miles gets back.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he had anything else to start off with.
So that's all I had to say, and we'll ask
What?
him about the zoning districts for the, it's on the work sheet, it's on the work,
I had a question for you.
Okay, sorry.
we discussed on the work plan, zoning district, redoing the zoning districts.
Yeah.
Did we put that back off again, or?
No, and then analyzing the zoning district setbacks was on the work plan.
Right.
Not the
Right.
zoning districts themselves, but
Okay.
as a part of starting to have those conversations about the 2026 comprehensive plan, we're gonna start workshopping the layout of the zoning districts and the future land use map. So
Okay.
Yeah.
that will probably start happening end of this year, beginning of 2025.
Okay, I just wanted to make mention of that, that's all.
John, there was one question I wanted to ask.
Go ahead.
If there was any update or anything on the Norm Fasteners, project?
No, there hasn't been,
Been pretty quiet.
yeah, it's been pretty quiet, like kinda suspiciously quiet.
Yeah.
I know that, I wanted to get back with them and our township engineer and kinda just have a check-in. When I brought that, I felt that was needed to staff, I got informed that the IFT district, so that's their abatement district, basically how it works is, we proposed language, they tentatively agreed to the language, and it went to the board for a vote. The board voted to allow the abatement district. Then it has to, we have to sign, they have to sign, and it goes to the state abatement commission, or some state body that codifies all this. Some state taxing entity.
Yeah,
When we went to get their signature, and I don't handle this side of things, but I think this is how it went out. So hopefully I'm not misspeaking here. When we went to get their signature, there were some of the conditions within the agreement that they didn't like. And they pushed back on that, and then we pushed back on that, and then it's just back and forth, and the clock to get it to the state committee or commission or whatever it is ran out. And so now that has to go through again, and that's being worked out. So when I went to see what I could do to shore up some of these outstanding engineering questions, I was told, put a pause on that. We got kind of an issue that we need to work out with them first before we move forward on anything, and that's the abatement district. So either that needs to get worked out by, I think it's February 1st, or they're gonna have to come back to the board. So they have a little bit of time, but the clock is really tight here to get agreement worked out. So I guess the news is we'll see,
Yeah, news is no news.
yeah. Which that's not necessarily a bad thing, I think their
True.
timeline was super ambitious for something of this scale.
Now, when you said that they push back and we push back, did you mean about our 18 stipulations?
No, this is the stipulations that were in the abatement district.
Oh, in that, okay.
I mean, obviously, with our conditions for the special use permit that this body and the board, put on that permit, they're gonna have to comply with those, failure to do so,
In
we'll have to
addition, yeah.
amend, or they'll have to come back. They're pushing back on the language that's within the abatement agreement.
Okay.
There's standards that have to be met within that, so like so many jobs by this year. You know, you have to spend so much money in the township, they wanted to, amend some of that. I can't speak to the details, but yeah, that's the type of stuff that.
And, and just to be clear, is this the developer that's doing this, or is it Norm
I think
Fasteners?
it's Norm.
Okay. Just,
I understood that
Makes
some of the
sense.
people on the board didn't like some of the conditions. Is that not
Well,
correct?
I mean, no developer's gonna, they don't like, no one likes being held accountable for some of this stuff, so they're always gonna, and especially their legal team's always gonna push back.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But if
that's
they
standard.
push back too much and there's no deal, then, you know, they can kill the project themselves,
Yep,
so. We'll see, I mean, you don't want municipalities, and this is something that gets talked about a lot in planning, mostly in context of stadiums, sports stadiums. Municipalities have gotten left holding the bag,
yep,
Yeah.
so to say, I guess,
yep,
in the past, and now they've gotten a little bit wiser to that game that we all play with developers. And so they've tried to shore that up, and the development industry, of course, doesn't like that.
I was asked that question, that very question, from a couple of, individuals in the community about what happens, you know, when they, 5 years from now, they lose interest and just move out. You know, we're stuck with that big building, you know?
I asked that question to
Yeah.
Miles.
Yeah, we got asked that question a lot through this whole
yeah,
process,
yeah.
and I guess our answer is, we've set it up so it wouldn't, even if that did happen, it wouldn't be a negative for us.
Good.
Yeah, the building will be constructed such that it's marketable for another use. But potentially anyhow, I
Yeah.
mean, nothing in life's guaranteed. so.
It's in a sweet spot.
I mean, buildings with that much utilities going to them, I mean, three-phase power, sewer, water, gas, that close to the highway exit of that size, I mean, they're a rare commodity. That
That'd be-
building will have no trouble finding a tenant.
Yep,
Right. Right.
thank you, Miles.
Ray, did you have anything?
Is that right?
me?
Yeah. Skip it.
I was gonna go, me last, I was gonna go back to.
Okay, okay.
You're not tenured yet.
Just one question, so we're talking about Chandler Road and whatnot, and Daryl's proposed thing to put 9 homes there. What can we say about what kind of screening he's got to put along Chandler Road for those homes? Anything?
He cut it all down. He cut it all down.
It's an SUP, right?
I don't wanna answer the wrong way, because I'm not sure if he has to come back, cause I haven't done this before, and amend the PUD, how it's all platted out there, or if he is able to do just land divisions through the land division process. If he has to amend the PUD, this body would have ability to talk about screening. If he is able to just divide up the property through other means, or through land division, then no, not so much, cause, it's a use by right and it's housing and there's not so much. There's also always the ability to circumvent the township and go directly to the state to divide out the parcels, which is what happened famously here
Yep,
in White Hills. And they're not a part of this HOA. Now, I think the HOA is trying to bring these homes into it, but the satellite imagery is up to date, there's homes built here now and there's a road, but that,
right,
to get all that divided out, the township, when this first came, said, no, we're not
Right.
into doing that, and they went through a state process that circumvented us.
yep,
Which is rarely used, but, you know, a savvy developer can use it.
Yeah,
So Daryl's got options, basically.
Yeah. The first communication he had with our president was that he was thinking about making that part of our HOA.
Yeah,
yep,
The
that was
latest communication we got from his office manager,
Cammy,
said that they're gonna set up a separate HOA, I don't know why.
yeah, I don't know why they would do
That
that.
concerns us somewhat, well,
For 9 homes?
our president has been involved in this kind of stuff other places before, he says it's quite a process to
amend an HOA and do all this other stuff, and he thinks it legally it may be more expensive for him to do it that way, is to just make a separate HOA. Because our concern is that we wanna make sure those homes that are built there are similar to what's already there.
Yeah.
And I know when our area was developed, the developer had, I don't know, 7 different floor plans, or, I don't know exactly if that's right or not, but 5 to 7 different floor plans in styles of homes. I mean, we'd like to see them, whoever's gonna develop that one, use the same thing, so that they kind of fit in, but, I don't know, anyone can make that
Everything I've heard from Daryl at this point is he wants it to be as
Homogeneous.
similar and as kosher with your guys' HOA as possible.
happen. Yeah. That'd be good.
Will they have sidewalks there? I know you guys don't have
We don't have
sidewalks.
No, you don't have, they don't have sidewalks, do you, Ray?
No, we don't. I would assume probably not. I don't know.
Yeah, for single-family homes, there's no requirement, it's for commercial entities.
Right. Jason?
Oh, I'm excited to report out, Township Ordinance 42-133. This is the curfew for underage persons. Did you know that we have an ordinance
No, I did
that
not.
restricts 12-year-olds and younger from being out in the public right-of-way after 8 p.m.?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
And that's for those 14 and under, I think it's 10 p.m. And so if you see any young children frolicking around on the sidewalks after 8 p.m., call the police.
What if there aren't,
Or the code compliance person.
Code compliance person?
what if there aren't any sidewalks?
In the road then,
In the road right away,
yeah. We're in Hawk Hollow.
yeah,
Yep.
that's true.
Anyhow, the serious point here is that we have some seriously outdated ordinances
I think
on our books.
we still have one about keeping your horse down around Park Lake, if I remember right, too.
Yeah, love that for us.
Mark, nothing? I had some interesting conversations last week with the people from the county and the lady from MDARD, or MEDC, I'm sorry, I said MDARD, MEDC, about development in Clinton County. Clinton County has a full-time person that represents Michigan Economic Development Corporation in Clinton County. And she's working with an out-of-state developer that's interested in doing 2 truck stops in Clinton County. One at the intersection of US 127 and Price Road. I think it's, no, M21, I'm sorry. M21. You know where the Meyer property is on the north side of the
Yes.
street? Building a mega truck stop there, and the other site is at Webster and 69 in Bath Township,
Webster at 69.
Where?
on Mr. Kessler's property.
Mega truck stop.
I wondered always why they, if you recall, they were going to there was a proposal to put a truck stop where Hawk Ridge is, right on the corner of Park Lake Road and Webster.
At one time there was,
Yeah,
yes.
that was back when Troy Feltman was, and they they voted that down, and then the apartments went in.
I don't know that, maybe my definition of a mega top stop is inaccurate. It would be something akin to the one at Airport Road in Clark.
Oh, that's pretty big.
Oh, Airport Road and Clark, that's not very big.
I mean,
Well, it's between that and the one over at,
Flying J?
yeah, Flying J.
Yeah, that's
That's
huge.
what I'm thinking.
That one's huge, yeah.
Yep. I believe it was Love's that wanted to put one in at Park Lake, and
I think it was, Ray, but I'm not sure. But I thought that was really interesting that Michigan Economic Development Corporation is pushing what I consider is probably got a limited lifehood.
Yeah.
As
That
we
would certainly-
transition to electric vehicles, I don't know that I would want to spend a couple of $1 million on a gas station.
Let's put fast chargers in place of
Yes,
pumps.
yeah.
well, electric semi-trucks are a lot farther off than electric cars.
There was one on M14 2 weeks ago.
Really? Oh, wow.
Pepsi or Meyer?
Penske. It was a test
Oh,
truck that they had built.
interesting, yeah.
They were using it to haul freight, but
Yeah.
it was their tractor, electric.
Sure.
Seems to be a little bit of controversy about electric cars, though, whether we should have them or not.
Did you see the award by the state for,
The one in Detroit?
no,
The
here?
battery plant in Detroit?
No, I'm talking about the charging stations.
No, I did not.
For Williamston, and where else was it? There was 3 places. One was Williamston, that was the closest. And I think it was, another one was, along 69, but I mean, it literally skipped us. And I went, God, we got 69 going right through here. Seems like we should have a charging station, one of those, the heavy duty 800 volt ones,
Yeah. I'm surprised that restaurants aren't putting them in. I would think that that would be a great combination.
To go in and eat, and
Go in and eat and charge your vehicle while you're in eating.
you can most vehicles now will go up to 80%, which is what's
Yeah,
recommended
in
within a half an hour.
45 minutes to an hour,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
I don't know, it's an interesting phenomenon. And the cobalt's still coming from Africa with all kinds of pollution issues that I think Jack talked about.
Well, he was
as
talking
well
about
as-
silica.
How much heavier are electric vehicles?
A lot.
Considerably.
I've heard that they're gonna tear our roads to bits.
About a ton.
I don't think it's gonna be anywhere
About a ton
comparable
heavier.
to what the semis are doing.
Oh, no, you're right.
Michigan, and Ray can tell you about this, is the only state in the nation
No,
that
there's
has
2.
Is there 2?
At that time, yeah, it was Texas and Michigan.
axle loading.
Have what's called some of the axles rule.
Yeah.
That you can carry as much weight as you want, as long as you have 11,000 pounds payload per axle.
Yep,
And so we can have a lot of axles, cause we can carry payloads of, I think, 120,000 pounds max here in Michigan. But I mean, it can only be intrastate, it can't be interstate,
right.
But we cannot have triples in Michigan.
No, you can only have.
You've seen those on the Ohio Turnpike.
Ohio Turnpike.
Yeah.
Those are they seem to be the most dangerous thing I've ever seen in my life. Anyway, we're getting off topic here.
Yeah,
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
okay. I got a motion to adjourn in a second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone object?
I object.
You have something else
Thank
to say?
One vote is all you have.
One vote.
He was in the middle of his comments. Did you get him out?